Hey, you're getting lost in plot. We're talking about Tokyo Vice. Tokyo Vice is the new original series on HBO Max, and it is starring Ansel Elgort as a Western student who comes to Japan because he wants to be a journalist for the local Japanese newspaper covering the crime beat. So when you think about Tokyo Vice, you're probably thinking about, neon lights, grimy streets, and crime, violence in Japan. And that's exactly what you're getting here. So we follow our protagonist, who is Jake Adelstein. He is our would-be journalist for Japan, and we see him in the beginning of this episode immersing himself in Japanese life. And what I like so much about this pilot episode for the series is how they introduce his character and what they really show us about him, because they're doing some really awesome stuff at the beginning of this episode. It's directed by Michael Mann. Michael Mann of Miami Vice is directing Tokyo Vice, and he's doing a damn good job at it. So we're being introduced really to Japan, to Tokyo, this city and this place in 1999, as well as the character of Jake. We're seeing it all together because we're seeing him really immersing himself in the culture. We see him disciplined, we see him learning martial arts, we see him doing all these things, getting ready for something really critical and important. And this guy just looks driven all the way through. And what he's getting ready for is a big exam. The name of this pilot episode is The Test. He has to take a test to see if he can work at this Japanese newspaper. And we think he's going to be crushing it because we've seen him study, we've seen him so focused and head down, just blaring away at this. And he's killing it. He's crushing that test. And all of a sudden he looks at the clock and he's done. He's got like 15 minutes left, man. 15 minutes. He looks around, all the other colleagues there, they're still working on it. So we think this guy is a total ace, right, when we meet this character. But if you've ever taken a test and you find out that you're done way before everyone else is done, then maybe you fucked up. And that's what we find out here. As good as he is, as much as he's devoted himself to this and as disciplined and focused as he is, he's missed an entire page of questions in this exam. And that's such a great story point and a story beat to develop that character, because we see that in spite of all of his skills, everything that he's cultivated in himself, he's still capable of a major screw up, and that could be something that really comes back to bite him in the ass later in the episodes for this first season. So it's just a great bit of writing and a great character moment for him, and it's one of the things I liked so much about this, aside from the really awesome music and soundtrack of this, the really cool visuals, all of the scenery just looks amazing. The performance from Ansel Elgort is awesome. Like, he really holds it as this character. Like, we want to follow him through this as being the very first foreigner to work at this Japanese newspaper, and he's covering the crime beat, and he very quickly realizes that covering crime in Japan is not what he thinks it's going to be, because you just don't cover the crime and report on that. You report what the bureaucracy feeds you and tells you to report. One of the characters has a great line where he says, "There's no murder in Japan." It's like, what the hell? What do you mean? What he means is there's only a murder if the police say it's a murder. Despite what he can report and put together and write for his article, if the police say it's something else, it's something else. And famously, the police don't ever report a murder unless there's a witness to tell them that it's a murder, because then they have to. But it's a great moment for Jake, and it puts this heavy decision in front of him. It's about whether he can really continue doing this job that he wanted so badly. And the interesting thing about his character too is, well, why is he doing this? Why go to Japan to be a journalist when you could just stay at home in Missouri and do it? And he says his father was a coroner, and he introduced him to it, and he became obsessed and very just fascinated by finding the little forensic details about crime and telling a larger story from it. And again, that's a really great character beat, that we're interested in this guy and we want to go with him. We want to see what else he's going to do. So Jake gets this decision that's the crux of the episode about whether he can continue to write these stories or whether he's going to write it the way he thinks he should write it and the way he thinks he should investigate it. And it's brought to head when he's covering this man who's drenched himself in gasoline out on the sidewalk in the middle of a public street and then just lights himself on fire. And when Jake investigates to ask, well, why is it that he did it? Because how he did it is not as important as the why. And he asked the wife whether he did it because he was heavily in debt. And she says, no, he just didn't want to live in shame. And that's really the choice that Jake is now looking at. It's kind of he thinks he's going to be living in shame if he compromises his values and writes the Japanese propaganda articles from the bureaucracy like they want him to, versus him reporting the things the way he wants to and chase his passion down. So that's another just excellent character point. You know, the writing is really good all the way through. Michael Mann does a solid job directing this, and it's an awesome pilot for this season, and it's alive. It's alive, an 8 out of 10. So recommend you check out Tokyo Vice on HBO Max. They've actually put the first 3 episodes of the season out, so you can watch all 3 of those, which is great. So if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe, because we're going to be back doing more. And check us out on Twitter. We will catch you guys on the next one.